They had bound me and were hitting me with all these horrible implements. There's so many different kinds of torturous implements that are just so horrible. They put clothespins all over me and clothespins in my mouth. The clothespin that was biting my tongue, I spit it into his face. And all the other doms saw that, and instantly, like, the tone changed. Like,
send it upon you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the escalation of the punishment just got so insane. I was young. I've always been kind of like a cougar chaser. I don't really know why, but I've always found elderly women hot. I'm very flexible in more than one way.
You are very flexible, yes.
I wish I had like another story to tell you.
No, tell us the truth.
The real story was such a disaster.
Welcome back to another episode of Uncensored with MX Tomie. Today we have the Luca Vale here with us today. Luca is a bisexual bull and pro-switch based in New York City. He has been active in the kink and non-monogamy scene in New York City for over a decade, and he uses his background in mental health to help clients have a lot of fun while growing and understanding themselves better. When he's not making his clients' dreams come true, he's cooking up extravagant meals for his friends and family in his Brooklyn apartment. You can find him by searching Luca Vale BDSM on Google, and that's Luca space Vale. Welcome, Luca.
Thank you.
I love that mask. Such a huge fan of it.
Thanks.
I would love to know, just to get started, how did you choose the name Luca Vale? What's the origin story of that?
Oh, that's so interesting. I asked first a lot of people in the community and a lot of pro-doms and asked them what name they thought would resonate. And I didn't like any of the names that anyone was coming up with. And so I really like the story of Lucifer. As sort of like the archetype of the anti-authoritarian. And I was inspired by that story, but I felt like Lucifer is just way too much on the nose. So Luca is like a sort of a diminutive form of Lucifer. And, not to be so over serious or something, but it just sounded nice.
No, it's very sincere, which I love.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like it's like soft and masculine, but not too serious or intimidating. And that's kind of who I am.
And Vale?
Vale, I just thought sounded like it was more of an aesthetic choice of just the balance of the soft L and the consonants of the two. I don't know, it sounded nice. And Vale was like evoking kind of like a natural scene. And that kind of, I don't know, resonated with me for some reason.
Yeah, the dichotomy of that is, the tension of that is really nice. It does play quite well into your like switchy nature too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to know, what's your origin story? Do you have like a first moment when you were growing up, you're like, oh, I really enjoy XYZ?
Yeah.
And how did that develop over time?
That's so interesting. Yeah, actually the origin story question is something that I discuss a lot with other kinksters and people in the scene. And we are very different actually in how, a lot of people have an experience when they're younger that kind of clues them into something. And I didn't have that. I was actually like in my, I guess, like late teens and early 20s, like way more interested in mindfulness and like tantra. So kink to me was like pretty different. Like it just felt kind of on the other side of some spectrum that I didn't totally grasp or understand. And then over time, I became like really interested in, meditating a lot, and through different like psychedelic experiences, kind of like opened my mind up a lot to different kinds of, I guess, niches of human inquiry and expression or something, And then I was interested in the concept of subspace. I was really interested in psychology and the idea of subspace as being this kind of like, elated or, kind of like inward delving space, like reminded me of like states I had experienced in deep meditation, like on retreat or something like that. The idea that like a human this like on the surface seemingly like, you know, taboo relationship between like in power dynamics between one human and another could actually like elicit that, and a sub was very interesting to me. So I started exploring that and became a sub, and I was a sub, or I guess kind of like a middle, you would say, for a couple, a much older couple. And that was
what does a middle mean in this context?
So like I was always submissive to him. But at his instruction, I would be dominant to her. And so, you know, I really liked being tied and being controlled by him. And I really liked being used as basically as a toy or bull, or, you know, like human sexual creature on her by him, which was very hot for everybody.
And was this your first sort of like kink experience, or were there like some explorations online through porn?
It was pretty much that, yeah.
Or you just jumped right into it with a couple too.
Yeah.
That's really unique.
Yeah, it was pretty much like in person right away. I wanted it was about the experience, I guess, really, to me.
How did you find this couple?
There's a lot of different places in New York where people gather to do these kinds of things. And one of them was very like queer oriented. So I've never really melded with this heterosexual like kink or non-monogamy community as much. And this like more queer facing community, they were there, and yeah, we dated the three of us dated for a couple of years.
Oh, okay. So the kink sort of awakening and the non-monogamy like happened all at the same time for you?
No, actually, the non-monogamy thing happened a lot earlier.
Okay.
I've been a big sci-fi fan my whole life, and I read a sci-fi book when I was very young.
Which one is it?
It's called Stranger in a Strange Land.
Okay.
By Robert Heinlein. And I read it and I was like, this is amazing and crazy. And then I gave it to my partner at the time, and she read it. And then, you know, I didn't make any suggestion or anything that we explore non-monogamy. I think we were like maybe like 19 and 20 at the time or something like that, very young. And then she brought it up afterward, and I was thinking the same thing. And that was the beginning of my interest in non-monogamy.
What happened in the book that introduced both of you to it?
I think that there was like a very beautiful concept of sharing love and relation to other people that was professed in the book and detailed to some extent in a way that I found really beautiful, and so did she. But for a sci-fi book, I think that really adequately captures non-monogamy in a way that's very beautiful. I would recommend the Fifth Sacred Thing by Starhawk. That book is very beautiful.
Yeah, I love how like sci-fi and fantasy can get us into like thinking about alternative forms of relationships. I was introduced to sort of like the fact that I'm not fully femme through the scene in like, I was like pretty young in, I think like the Aragon series, where all the elves were having like a full blood moon festival, and they would just like shift bodies in general. And I remember reading that when I was younger, and it awakened something in me around like, oh yeah, I do feel like there's extra expressions that I can portray that I don't see anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I would love to know, how did you get into sex work?
Oh, that's interesting. Through community, pretty much. I mean, like...
Were you always curious about it, or?
No, I wasn't really always curious about it. I mean, honestly, like once I started to learn about it from my friends and understand that it could be a lot of fun and interesting, I got interested in doing it as well. And like, it wasn't very hard to get started. It felt kind of pretty natural. Yeah.
It was pretty easy segue for you. Doesn't sound like there was a lot of like emotional barriers to starting a work that tends to be fairly stigmatized.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I actually think that, sex work is a lot of clients don't want to see it this way, which is understandable. But I think there's a lot of care, and I sort of see it less as like sex work and more as like human relating work, you know, and communication work. And yeah, but you're right. I mean, the kind of taboos, those sorts of taboos, I don't really ascribe to and haven't ascribed to for a long time.
Yeah, there's a line of thinking, which is that like sex work falls under the category of like broader care work, and that includes things like massage, right, with or without a happy ending. Sometimes it like is part of the same like line of emotional labor as any other sorts of caretaking or like housework too.
Yeah.
Do you remember the story of do you remember your first session? How did that feel walking into the room? Were there any nerves? How did you vet them?
I wish I had like another story to tell you.
No, tell us the truth.
The real story was such a disaster. It's so funny. I was at a play party, and one of my friends was going to see a client, and we had been playing, and she was like, "Oh, I gotta go see this client," and she was telling me about him, and this client's like, what people call like a whale or whatever, right? So like he'll rent a giant room and like invite a ton of people, not just like one or two workers, but like a bunch of us, and we'll all basically have like a party all night. So it's a crazy, very extravagant kind of a thing. And that was my first ever session, and I was so nervous, and just thinking about like what it was going to be like. I left my bag in the Uber. One of the other people there was smoking a joint, and I like took a hit of it, and I think ended up like getting a little too out of it, and I just it was overwhelming. It was intimidating, honestly. Like, these other guys that ended up coming through were just like the most like masculine porn star guys, giant. They were all giant, and it was like, and I'm here just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know if I should approach or whatever, it's just like all of the things that I know about communication, and I was all like afraid to use my tools. So, it was like a little bit of like fear of the new, So yeah, the first session was kind of intense, but it was fun. And I couldn't believe that I made a bunch of money, and, then they like sent me home and continued booking more people for the rest of the night, after I had my hour or whatever there. And but I've worked with that client since, and multiple times, and it's been great since then. But
is it always a party?
I would say generally, if I'm involved in a scene, like if someone's booking me, tends to be like a party kind of vibe. I don't really work very much one-on-one with clients. I am, because I'm bi, and because I'm a switch, and because I don't really care about being a particular thing, like I don't have an attack. I love being a bull and I love being a dom, but I don't need to, So like I find that it's really easy for me to fluidly interact with the client's own relationship with their masculinity and their sense of dominance and hierarchy, and I can sort of fluidly match them as they shift even in scene, right? So, clients will go up and down in that dimension a lot, especially cucks. They'll be more cucky, less cucky. I think depending on the power of the dom also. Like you are very powerful dom, so with your clients, so you kind of like hold them in their cuck. But like other people are more on the cusp of like full service to dom, and so the dominance of the cuck is not something that's necessarily taken for granted 24/7 throughout the whole of the scene, right? So I'm trying to like, as the dominant bull, trying to step back when I'm tuning into him so that he can take step up and, you know, sort of like fill that.
You have a great intuition for group scenes, and you're really good at being fluid in those dynamics. I remember our first session, we've like never seen each other before.
Yeah, that was that was crazy.
Yeah. Usually I like kind of know the person I'm going to do a scene with, but with you, it was just like you walked in and then we had a fantastic scene.
Crazy. Yeah.
It just like,
it was super hot.
Yeah, it was so hot. Yeah. There was no like lag
yeah.
between like meeting each other and immediately jumping into like the most explicit thing ever with the cock.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for like holding space for that and that like holding that vulnerability. Because honestly, I was like, you know, she's really like stepping up to the plate here in a big way. She's like never met me and I'm about to walk in and like, you know, have to jump into this scene. That's, you know, it was very cool, and I was really impressed with you immediately from that scene.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was good. You know, you were fantastic in doing what you're very good at doing. So leave it at that. Is there anything that surprised you the most about doing this work now that you've been doing it for a while? Something unexpected that people don't realize about being, you know, a male sex worker?
What has surprised me? I am surprised that how much I'm getting booked by cucks. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You know, that I would say that's like, maybe it's just because it's my niche or my specialty, or that's kind of like how I relate. That's kind of a surprising thing. It's just it's the types of sessions I've been doing have been a surprise to me.
Yeah, and for people who aren't familiar with his niche, your big three kinks and fetishes are ckolding, sissification, and encouraged by. Yeah. Used to be called forced by, but we have to censor it now. Yeah. How did you land upon those three?
I mean, in a way, they just are the ones that are most exciting to me. I really like, I don't know, I think from like realizing that I was bisexual kind of later in life helped me see that male bisexuality is very complicated and very nuanced and subtle. And I got excited by the idea of like facilitating that kind of an experience for people.
Male bisexuality is very complicated and nuanced.
Yeah. That's why I think, male bisexuality is complicated. And I think that it's not something that female sex workers can do, is like help men come to terms with their bisexuality. Like they can't do it alone. They need a man who can hold space for that man and his feelings and his desires, and also have the dom there to be like the sort of anchor point. Because like at any point we can drift away from forced bi and back into a more heterosexual dynamic. And so you can kind of like layer in bisexuality in a way that always feels good, you know? And it, I don't know, it comes naturally to me and feels hot. And I like making it hot, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm having fun, hopefully everyone's having fun. And if they're having fun, I'm having fun. You know?
Yeah. I would love to hear about like maybe an example or a session you've had that was really fulfilling for you in helping someone come to terms with their sexuality through this like guise of, oh, it's being forced upon me, even though they've been hinting that they've wanted it or explicitly said they wanted it.
Yeah. Well, an interesting thing is that like you don't necessarily get to debrief with them afterward. So you don't actually get to confirm, you know, that there's any sort of like awakening in them of queer identity or whatever. But I have spoken to men who have had many cuck or forced by or encouraged by sessions. And then now I'm speaking to them years later after having those relationships, and they've reminisce thinking how those things unlocked their identity of their queerness. Mm-hmm. So I do see, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in session. It happens behind the scenes and in their like way of relating to their sexuality and how they relate to both men and to women. Mm-hmm. 'Cause the hard thing about it is that for most guys, that I think for a lot of guys that aren't totally sure or who are exploring, their main source of attraction is still going to be the dom, right? The dom is the like iconic archetype of attraction to them, that they have hours and years of built up relation with that sex. And so as I'm sort of like layering in little bits of male sexuality, it is going to take a lot of time for that to like disseminate through their psyche or whatever, you know? But I will tell you about a recent time. A guy booked me and another provider. He and I work together a lot in New York. And we're both, you know, this kind of whatever, like bull, dommy kind of energy. You know, we've got beautiful bodies, big dicks, blah, blah, blah. Like he wants basically us to spoil his dom for him. And he, according to her, doesn't have an ounce of gay or homosexual urgency or whatever. But you know, he really enjoyed so one of the things that I'm kind of like, one of my party tricks is that I can have very good orgasm control. So I can like come over and over and over again without like having a refractory period.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you get booked a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons I get booked a lot. And one of the things that cucks and clients just in general really like is my like volumes of contribution to that effort. And he just really enjoyed that. Like as the session was going, I was, you know, would keep coming over and over again, and he would return. He was like bound and cucked in a corner, and then he would return to the scene and then like clean up and then go back. And, you know, he really like clearly enjoyed that a lot, even though it wasn't gay, or, you know, even though he doesn't have that sort of like frame of thinking about it. It was hot for him. And I think that's kind of the part of it being like having a hot interaction with another man that's so intimate and so like visceral like that, you know, it's like maybe is, you know, sort of like opening things up in some way, you know.
Is your attraction to men and women different, or is it the same kind of attraction?
It's pretty different. I definitely think that I understand, you know, the concept of like women are the fairer sex. I mean, that was, I think, part of the reason why it was hard for me to come to terms with my bisexuality. It was just like, I wasn't bisexual. I was just sexual, and women are just so hot that I must be straight, because I'm definitely not feeling the same way for women I do for men. But then it kind of like, you know, sort of started melting at some point where I sort of realized like, nah, not really. There's definitely some beautiful energy towards men too. Yeah.
What is that difference, if you could name it? I'm also bi, so I'm always curious about like how that feels differently for other people.
It's interesting. It's also kind of like wrapped up in culture too. So it's not just like, I don't really think about myself as like, oh, I'm attracted to women, or I'm attracted to men, or I'm attracted to they, thems, or it's like, what is the like cultural background that the person is coming from? And like, I had a hard time connecting to the cis gay culture, which is one of the things that kind of prevented me sort of from like exploring, like with men. I felt like, I knew earlier on in my life, I knew some gay men who I felt like were pretty sexist, and that like turned me off in a way. But obviously, like later in life, like got to know more amazing, incredible cis gay men. I guess I like for better or worse, I think that the story around sexuality that we tell each other and ourselves and our expectations is still rooted in the dynamic of the male-female relationship. And so that means that there still is some layers of expectation or story setting there that aren't present in the male-male relationship in a way that I really appreciate. And so I really love that about male-male relationships, is that there's like a fundamental peerness to it, even though like, one person might be more of the bottom or one person might be more of the top or whatever. There's a feeling of peerness that is unique to the homosexual relationship that I really love.
As a switch, is there a certain style of like topping and bottoming or subbing and doming that you tend to lean towards? And are you quite different in those roles? Yeah,
I am very different in...
What type of sub are you? And what type of dom are you?
As a sub, I enjoy being a service sub. I enjoy being like a pleasure sub, just doing what the person wants. Sometimes I get in the headspace that I'm looking for catharsis, or I'm looking for some kind of like energetic transformation. So then I will like try to engage in some masochism, because masochism will help me like unlock things. I had like a scene with like where I was going through a really tough time, and so we were at this party, and there were like 4 doms there, and all 4 of them are total sadists. And I was like, I would love like a really intense scene, and each one of them had like their own sort of like form of sadism. One was like a really rough rigger, one was like an impact top, etc. And they, basically like held me and kind of like obliterated me to the point where like my spirit was kind of almost like, you can exit this body. Like if you want to, you do not have to be here in this corporeal form anymore. You can like leave. And it was like, it took me about like 2 days to recover from it, but like it felt like something kind of deep inside of me moved.
Yeah. Okay. Can you walk us through, like, give me the details of that scene? Like, what did they exactly do to you? How did you experience that moment?
There was rope. I like floor rope, so I'm not as a sub, I'm not as interested in like the short, slow, meditative shibari. Being bound and then being like using that binding and pressing, they were like pressing me into the ground and like tied me up in these kind of like pretty uncomfortable positions. And the rope then becomes like sort of a source of pain, because like, they might put knots in the rope in specific places that when they press on it, it hurts really bad. So they were, doing that. And then one of them was like a very good, they have very small hands, but they're very, very good spanking top. And they were giving me like 5 stars. Another was like biting me and giving kind of like an overall scene orchestration. One of the doms was just like whispering, just like poison into my ear the whole time, just like talking, just had that whole game like on lock. It was so great. And at one point, the point that I mentioned was like, they had bound me and were hitting me with all these horrible implements. There's so many different kinds of torturous implements that are just so horrible. And they put clothespins all over me and clothespins in my mouth. And
on your lips or on your tongue?
On my lips, on my tongue, on my face, on my ears, on my like different parts of my skin. The like clothespins on the rope. And like, there's an interesting thing that happened in this moment where like, you're submitting to all of this, right? But like the body still has a say, right? So the body is like fuck you. Like, why are you putting me through this, you know? And sometimes that bubbles up with a little brat energy, right? And so I was in the scene being like, I mean, just destroyed, like compressed. And I remember one of the doms looking me in the face, the one who was doing the rigging. And I took the clothespin that was biting my tongue and I spit it into his face. And all the other doms saw that, and instantly, like, the tone changed. Like, it was like,
send it up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the escalation of the punishment just got so insane. And it was at that moment that, like, one of I got picked up and like basically like tossed across the room. There were like wrestling mats down, and I remember when I impacted on the ground, there were maybe like 100 clothespins on my body. And so I like smash on the ground and the clothespins scatter across the room. And the jolt of pain, my consciousness was just like, you can leave. Like, if you don't want to be here, like, it is available to you to exit. Which I was just like, I've never seen that door of awareness before. That was so interesting. I didn't even know that was there. So that was a pretty cool. But most of the time that I sub, it's not like that kind of level of masochism or that much like center of attention from so many doms.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like such a fun fucking scene.
It was.
That sounds like rope and all that. 2 hours, 2 to 3.
No, I mean, like, the nice thing about floor rope is that it's fast.
Okay, got it.
It's like, especially if the rigger is like knows what they're doing, and he I've tied with him before. He knows exactly what's up. So he like, you know, it was quick. I would say probably the whole scene was probably like more like an hour.
Oh, wow.
Maybe an hour and a half.
That's a pretty fast escalation into that level of pain for 1 hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah, there wasn't so much like if I'm like kind of committed to the bit, so to speak, I can like drop in pretty quick into subspace. It really like depends on, you know, the environment too.
Yeah.
And just like how you're feeling then. And I knew that I needed it. So it felt like my body was really ready to like go into that.
Yeah, and take all of that.
Yeah.
What about when you're doming then? What's your typical style? And I know it changes depending on the room.
Yeah. I am pretty... Yeah, I mean, are we talking about in a more like lifestyle or more in a like...
Let's talk about
clients?
both. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say in like lifestyle, I can be pretty demanding and pretty like verbally instructive. If the energy is right, I can also be pretty sadistic. There's a lot of catharsis for a dom to happen in getting to experience sadism and being held by a sub in the expression of that which like in any other social or civilization context would be like abhorrent. And that is really beautiful, but it's a pretty special thing to get to really dive into sadism. I don't do that much. But yeah, I mean, like control, you know, being bossy. I'm also like pretty switchy, right? So if I'm with another switch and we have experience together, we will be like trading roles consistently through the scene, you know, like kind of what people call like chaos switching, right? Where you're just like, who's on top? Who knows? You know, like we're just like moving through different energies.
Weather changes and it's different.
Exactly. It's just like moving and flowing and seeing whose nervous system has more like juice in it to give that more dominant energy in a given moment. And so, you know, you get to succumb. You get to be overtaken in that, you know, like somehow when one person's a dom and the other is a sub, there's an established and agreed to dynamic. And so there's an element of like, I've already kind of given up. But like when you're a switch, you truly get to be broken or like taken over. You know, if you really like messing with power dynamics, it's like really fun. Yeah,
there's a category of play called like domination loss. That's kind of fun.
Oh, interesting.
And I like to do that for subs who are switchy, right? Like, sure, start off doing whatever you want, like trying to take control all of that and then slowly breaking that over time.
Yeah.
And I think that's extremely hot.
Yeah. Yeah. I have done a similar scene like that before, but in the reverse, where like I started as the sub. So it wasn't domination loss, but rather domination gain.
Mm-hmm.
I used it sort of as it was like a therapeutic experience for myself that me and a friend put together, where I, like growing up, I had this like love of this one like clown on TV.
Which clown?
His name's Bozo.
Okay.
Bozo the clown. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like and I was very into his show. And around the same age, I watched It, the Stephen King movie.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I was maybe 4 or 5. And so
that's so young to watch a horror movie.
It was on TV, and he's terrifying. And in the original, you know, he's terrifying, and the new one is also terrifying. But it made a big impression on me that I had like a disturbing relationship to clowns that was clearly like related to this older, you know, older time. And so I got in this scene, got to replay this, right, where I was like a kid, pretending to be a kid that was then basically got like dominated and abused by like this sadistic clown dom. And then like at a certain pre-negotiated scene or part in the scene, we switched. And then I got to sort of experience that like breaking of my shackles and like overcoming the dom and having the experience of like not only feeling like I was overpowering them and I was the one who was safe and they were the one that were not, but more importantly, the feeling of like pity on them, that I could like mess up their makeup and make them all like, you know, sad and everything like that. I felt like it sort of shifted something in me, seeing that vulnerability in the dom, like the scary clown dom that now was my, like, you know, submissive. So that was a cool, like, I don't know what you would call that. It's not domination loss, domination gain, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, well, domination loss on the clown side.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like, I'm imagining sad little honks from the nose as they, like, get smaller.
Yeah.
Like, going back into the car that they all, like, piled out of, like, sadly crawling back into the car and, like, driving away.
Yeah. You're like, oh, we lost this time.
Poor little clown.
Yeah. Sorry. Messed up your makeup.
Another of the big kinks that you currently now sort of like practice is sissification too.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing some threads around sort of like the, you know, opening up of different sexuality, you know, perhaps some of that dressing up, makeup, you know, the theatrics of it coming together.
Yeah.
When did you first discover that, you know, how did you sort of experiment with that?
Yeah.
And I know there's some discourse in the community too around like sissification versus feminization. We'll love to hear your thoughts on that discourse.
I'll have to say that I'm like, you know, I am not on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or anything.
I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. I'm not, mostly because I find it too distracting. Or just like, I'm not good at social media. Like some people can like use it a little bit every day, and my brain is so reward focused that I'll just jump into it. So I don't really use it. So I'm not aware of the discourses that are happening. So let me know, you know, the details. But I mean, just my background is basically that I started having scenes where it was going to be an encouraged by scene. And then the clients started, like more and more of the clients were asking for this, you know, feminization, sissification element to it. And it was from, you know, I guess like just my personal experience in my life of like exploring gender and my relationship with my like internal feminine energy and masculine energy, which I care very deeply about being able to hold both. I like thought that it was really beautiful that, you know, these men were wanting to explore this. And I very much related to that, related to the concept that the patriarchy puts men into a prison, just like it puts women into another different kind of prison, and thought it was beautiful that men would want to explore what it could feel like to feel beautiful, to feel feminine, to feel soft, to feel pretty, and so like in scene, it was beautiful for me to be able to provide that counterpoint of validation, right? Like rather than like the dom is now one of their girlfriends telling them that they're hot, it's me, right? The masculine archetype confirming that or validating that feeling in them, which I really enjoy and thought that was, very beautiful. And like, I often, though I like present as, he, him in my personal life in sessions, like in scenes, I do mess with different pronoun identities to enable me to like, get to experience that more fullness, of being a person. Like I think on the topic of gender, I think it's kind of like it's a biological like misrepresentation that gender is as binary, obviously, but like more importantly, like every person who's living is like the combination of multiple genders of ancestors all the way back through history. So like you are just like the sort of like leaf at the end of the tree. You're not like male or female. You're like an aggregation of millions of years of both masculine and feminine traits and history and experiences, now distilled and expressed in a specific way. But like we have so much more in us than just male, female. We're all like this really fluid, blended thing. So it's really amazing, and sort of also like finally that we are getting to this point where like people are interested in gender and exploring it. And it's beautiful that in sex work we're getting to help people do that like in real life,
Yeah, I definitely agree. I find a lot of my my own subs who participate in sissification and feminization, it's very similar to the encouraged by sort of or cuckolding fantasies, where they want to experience an alternative form of sexuality that is not cishet, vanilla fucking,
right.
But they necessarily need to convince themselves through like power play in order to access it.
Yeah.
The discourse I was mentioning earlier is like the divide between sissification and feminization, where feminization tends to be like more like empowering around femininity. It's kind of like what you're talking about. And sissification like necessarily requires an element of humiliation or degradation of the female expression, right? So there's some doms who like will only participate in feminization because they think sissification like reinforces the idea that the female expression is, like very one-dimensional, right? You're wearing like extremely slutty clothes and like cheap lingerie, and you're calling them like a whore and slut, all of that.
Right. That's interesting.
Sometimes it's necessary to go through that step of humiliation, degradation for them to even access that part of them.
Right.
Sometimes they like that is the only way they can participate.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of sissies for that reason.
Yeah.
And I also don't think it's necessary for me to have to push them towards feminization if that's like not the journey they're on.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I think that there's like, I definitely understand that point of view that like, no, like feminization is, is the one that's more just because it's the one that puts like that casts feminine energy in the best light, where sissification is sort of like a degradation of the feminine. But, there's also kind of a bit of an assumption here that's happening about like, what is the purpose of the sissification? Like, why are people engaging in sissification, right? Like, just like what you said, like, maybe that's actually like the catharsis that's needed in order for them to be able to relate to their feminine energy, right? They need to actually be able to like hold space for that which like would degrade it or whatever. I mean, I generally don't like poo-poo people's kinks, it's like,
Yeah, same.
But like, I also understand that I think people probably have much more well-informed and better reasoned opinions than I am just randomly like talking about this.
Yeah, and I think in general, being like having a body in general, regardless of what that body is humiliating in itself. Like we're tied to this like flesh tomb.
Literally.
That in itself is already a foray into some form of like degradation, humiliation, regardless of like how it presents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun part to play with, like changing the form of it as much as possible.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Yeah. I guess, maybe through kink, people will all be okay to accept the fact that we're going to die and we're like, actively degrading as we speak.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. And I would love to talk about sort of like your clientele base, your experiences with them. Do you have a favorite client right now and why?
I mean, one of the best experiences that I ever had was been a recent booking, actually. I was booked by a dom as a birthday present to herself. And, for various reasons, like in dynamics of her life and her, clientele and everything like that, a night with me was like the perfect, sort of thing. And it was so beautiful and affirming for me to get to feel like I got to spoil her, because as a provider, she spends so much of her time as a dom, like being that like space holder and, playing like Mr. Makes It Happen, basically, for so many other people. Mm-hmm. It felt like really good, like sort of setting things right in the world in a little bit, and that was beautiful. And I always get really inspired when clients are like, I'm really inspired by the story of the client and like what they're about and what's happening and what this means for them, because it really inspires me to like really give it my all and like put like as much of myself out there. Like I do not just, the sex stuff, but also like I'm good at talking and, really love to give massages. I've trained in like multiple different massage modalities, Thai and Swedish and deep tissue and all that kind of stuff. So there's like, over a long session, being really connecting to a client, I can really like spoil them in a lot of different ways. And that feels like really exciting. So that was pretty awesome. But I like there's a client that I would like to have, which I haven't quite found yet. But I've noticed I would love to like see more like elderly clients, more elderly women clients. I've had a lot of elderly male clients that are maybe not being faithful in their relationship or not sexually satisfied at home. And so they want to go, seek it elsewhere. And it would be really cool and great if I could, do the same, right? Like for an elderly female client, I think that would be really awesome.
So you heard it here first. If you are listening to this and you fit the bill, Google his name, hit him up.
Luca Vale BDSM. Just Google me. Yeah.
What is it about elderly female clients that you're really looking forward to like provide?
Well, I think that there's like a level of like helping people get in touch with their body that's beautiful to me, and helping people have great and fun experiences. And I have always, since I was young, I've always been kind of like a cougar chaser for some reason. I don't really know why, but I've always found elderly women hot. Or women that were older than me. I remember like when I was 19, I like remember hooking up with this like 39-year-old, and now I'm in my 30s and like I couldn't imagine hooking up with a 19-year-old, but like, for some reason it worked in the other direction for me,
Yeah.
So now being like in my 30s, I don't know, I like that first couple that I mentioned when I got into kink. They were a good like 20 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess I just enjoy that. I feel like I love the comfort that people have in their body, and the like, I guess the idea that I can be like a treat to someone is really hot.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
To close out this segment, is there anything that people don't know about you that you would love to share to the world right now?
I'm very flexible in more than one way.
You are very flexible, yes.
I'm flexible in many ways. Yeah, just obviously that I'm really grateful that I got to talk to you, and that I'm very open to being communicated with. If people want to reach out and talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Luca.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Uncensored with MX Tomie. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're a very good sub. And don't forget to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon, and all the other apps that I'm on. I'll see you on the next one.